Welcome to part two. Kevin Gage, the former Sheffield United player, also the general manager of Sheffield FC, Richard Sheldon, and James Gregg will have a roundup of sporting events. And James, you didn't, as you said to me during the break, you obviously didn't get the memo about the colour of the shirt. Gage and I have read the memo. Richard is he's a Middlesbrough supporter, so he didn't bother. But you're supposed to be wearing blue there, mate.
Hang on, by that same logic then, if Richard's a Middlesbrough supporter and he's not going to wear blue, well, you know, my allegiances, I ain't wearing blue, no way. So anyway, I'm glad that you didn't text me for the memo, actually, Alan. Thank you very much.
There's disobedience. Thanks very much, James. We'll see you next week. All right, let's bring you in later on that. In part one, I kept teasing people about Project Big Picture. I couldn't remember what the title of it was, so it's really made a huge impact on me. But it could have a seismic impact on the professional game if it was accepted and adopted. I mean, Kevin, you and I have not read every word on this, but clearly it is what's being termed as a power grab by the big six. So, do you agree with that, or do you think that could be a successful bailout of the EFL clubs?
Well, I don't agree with it. I think you know my thoughts on it. I don't agree with that at all. But you have to question their motives. You know why they're doing it, and the timing of them doing it. They can see that the EFL clubs are struggling financially. So the time is right for them personally, their greedy selves, to maybe do it. I think it's totally ridiculous. There's no need for it, is there? And I don't think it will happen, by the way. But if it did happen, I say let them go. Good luck to them, because I get quite bored with watching Chelsea v Liverpool and Man United v Man City, and I don't actually bother watching them anymore. You know, I'm interested in my club. And although I've got all the Premiership Sky and everything, I don't watch it because I find it very, very tedious. And if Chelsea want to go and form and Man United and the rest of them want to go and form some European Super League, let them go, because I won't be watching Arsenal versus St Etienne or Borussia Mönchengladbach or something, because there's no interest to me whatsoever. Similarly with the Champions League, I find that completely boring. You know, I'm sure lots of the UK football fans are interested in their own club and don't really give a monkeys what Man City and Man United are up to. And also, I think if it ever did happen, and let's say the big six, whoever they might be at the time, broke away and left the Premier League, well, let us all get on with it, because it'll be a far more competitive and maybe more entertaining, league with them gone.
Yeah, well, I quite agree. And you went to the heart of it there by talking about supporters, because the supreme irony of this is that the supporters of the so-called Big Six are against this plan because they want the traditional rivalries. Liverpool fans want to be playing Leeds United. They want to be playing Sheffield United. They're not interested in Borussia Mönchengladbach and having to go to Germany for games. So you're quite right. Let them go. Let them go. If money's the god, let them go.
Why not call their bluff to some extent and say, "Well, go then." So what if the Premier League don't give every club £1 billion over 5 seasons? I'm sure the rest of the Premiership, Sheffield United, Brighton, the rest of them, Everton, some of the others, I'm sure we can manage on a tiny little bit less than £1 billion or whatever it's over however many years. We managed for all those years, those 100 years beforehand. And even now the Premiership money has got completely ridiculous. Even if you go back 20 years, there was still a decent amount of money for the clubs to share. And I'm sure we would manage. It would be absolutely fine.
Yeah, well, let's hope that they will manage their affairs better in some cases as well, Kevin. Some of the clubs, the EFL wouldn't need, or many of the clubs wouldn't need a bailout. At least the sums that have been talked about, if they'd managed themselves more successfully, and maybe an outside regulator is required to ensure that they do that. What do you think?
There has to be some kind of financial break, isn't there? I know there's the financial fair plays or whatever it's called now, and I know obviously Sheffield Wednesday have fallen foul of that. But yeah, you're exactly right. They have to live within their means, and that's the pleasing thing of it. Just go back to Sheffield United. going into the Premiership, I was pleased that we didn't spend our Premiership windfall, just blow it on loads and loads of players. And I know we've spent to a level to allow us to compete, but we didn't do it what Fulham did 2 or 3 years back and what Aston Villa did last season, and just about managed to get away with it through that ghost goal. But we didn't spend everything that we earned from the Premiership. We've done it gradually, and we're trying to hopefully set the club up to be secure for the next 10, 15 years with this Premiership windfall.
Yeah, indeed, and that's really important. What do you make of it, looking from outside? Richard Sheldon, general manager of Sheffield FC. I mean, you run to very, very tight margins. You're not really a profit-motivated football club, and you made a point earlier in part one that, as a Middlesbrough supporter, you're not going to go back. It's not because you're anti-Middlesbrough all of a sudden. It's because you're anti that form of football, I take it.
Yeah, from a personal level, as a football fan, I think the upper echelons of football have been increasingly alienating a good amount of people, whether it's how the game is now and the money involved, or even down to, just for Sky. I used to watch regularly on Sky, as Kev made a point to. I'm not interested anymore. They ram it, it's rammed down your throat and packaged in a sense that you can't get away from it. And obviously football's great and we all want more football, but it just, for me, alienated me a little bit. And, going back to obviously being involved in non-league and watching non-league football, you start to feel your passion come back a little bit more. And that's not the same for every club, and certain clubs are well supported. Sheffield United seem to be operating as a whole on the field and off the field with a little bit of integrity. But obviously, you mentioned earlier the players diving, how the rules, you've got VAR coming in, and the way that's done, it's alienating people. And I think certainly with this Project X or whatever it's called, I think it's another step in big clubs alienate themselves even more, but as a package, that upper echelon of football, I think, is also doing the same. And now we've obviously got the fans not being allowed into the ground, which is devastating for the clubs as a business. I think it's projecting that a little bit more, and all the stuff we're seeing. And then obviously with fans engaging with non-league a little bit more, I think it's giving them the experience of what football generally should be about, which you tend to see at non-league. So yeah, I would say as an overall, it's probably this alienating a certain percentage of fans of the game.
Well, I think by the time this goes out, I think Project Big Picture might be a very small picture indeed, because I think there are 14 Premier League clubs who are likely, as we speak today, likely to veto it. Let's go back to the Blades, the big game against Fulham on Sunday at Bramall Lane. We can't kind of anticipate with the same level of excitement, Gagey, when there's nobody in the ground. This is so sad and unsatisfactory. And as one of the lucky people who does get to see some of those games, you wonder, does it actually matter? Sometimes an event has to have people attending it. Otherwise, it's not an event, really. It's so sad.
Well, you're exactly right. Yeah, as I mentioned in part one, I was fortunate to be at the Emirates on Saturday doing the commentary. And it was my first experience of the type of this new atmosphere and these games without any fans. And I have to say, I didn't enjoy it one bit. It was just very, very weird, and in many ways it was a bit like a practice game, like a training game, which seems strange to say with the millions of pounds at stake, and obviously global TV attendances. But it's just very, very strange, and I imagine strange for the players as well. Now, all the players have played in games like that, because you play practice games, as part of your normal training, and everybody's played reserve games and under 23 games in front of virtually, three scouts and a dog, etc. So it's not new for players to play in that type of environment. but it just seems to, it just didn't seem real in many ways. It was very, very weird, and it just was a ridiculous spectacle as well in a stadium that big in the Emirates, holds 60-odd thousand people, to be just eerie and so quiet. It's just not right at all.
No, surreal is probably the word. And does it explain why we've seen some of these, surreal scorelines? You can't get more bizarre than Aston Villa 7, Liverpool 2. Is it because it's like a practice match to these players?
There's certain players who are very, very good footballers, and they're called. We got a phrase for it. They're called training ground players. They're training players, because when the pressure's off and they're just playing, using all their ability on the pitch with no one watching and no one screaming down their throat. They're brilliant in training, and they may be great in reserve games. They play 10, 15 first team games, and they can't produce it in a first team environment, in a pressure environment, when there's thousands of people screaming at you. So it does take some getting used to. So what happens, I think, sometimes is players play without any fear at all in the environment that we're witnessing at the moment, like the Emirates on Saturday or whenever it is. And I think it seems to favour sometimes the better players and the better teams, in my opinion, because they're just using all their techniques and all their ability without any of the pressure involved whatsoever. What's also happening is the home advantage is kind of out the window, isn't it, at the moment? It just doesn't mean a thing anymore. It is literally just a football ground with 2 sets of goals and a few officials around it. It could be anywhere in the world without the fans behind you or any fans in the ground. It's very difficult to take it all in and come to any sensible kind of analysis on it, because it is so very strange. It really is.
I think we all agree that Sheffield United have suffered more than most from no crowds in the games because of the special atmosphere that had been generated at Bramall Lane. The place was absolutely rocking. And now, Kevin, when you look at the 4 games that they've played, 4 relatively close games, but no points. Fine margins, do you think? With crowds there, we're talking a couple of points at least, or maybe 3. No cause for panic the way they're playing. How do you assess it from here?
Yeah, I wouldn't put our poor start in any way, shape, or form down to the crowd not being there. Let's make that the point straight away, because I think you're exactly right. I think we've played okay, and I think Chris is right as well. He's said that as well, and he's not just making excuses, because if you go through the games, if you just take away that first 15, 20 minutes of the season against Wolves, where we didn't really start very well at all, and they got 2-0 up, we certainly came into it second half against Wolves. The Aston Villa game was ruined, of course, with the sending off, and even then we had chances and should have scored from the penalty spot. And then they only couldn't really break us down when we had 10 men. The Leeds game, I thought we played some of the best football in that game that I've seen us play for a long, long time, many, many months, certainly going back well into the start of last season. We actually played some fantastic football in and around their penalty area, and their keeper made 2, not even just good saves. They were world-class saves to stop us scoring in the first half. So by rights, we should have had a couple of goals there. So we definitely should have got something out of that game. And even the Arsenal game, for the first half, we were well in that game, completely in that game, and Arsenal weren't causing us any problems whatsoever. And on the balance of play, I thought we actually looked a very good side. 2 little bits of magic from Arsenal in the space of maybe 10 minutes in the second half, and you find yourself kind of down and out. But even after that happened, we picked ourselves up, and we made a few changes, and we took the game to them, and they were hanging on at the end. So I don't think there's any cause to panic right at this second, but obviously it can't go on that we keep losing games and we're not picking up points. And certainly the next 4 games, we talk about the Fulham game, it's a crucial game, but obviously the 3 games after that are so difficult matches, so difficult games. So we do need to get something out of Fulham, you're quite right. But it's early in the season, and Chris won't be pressing any kind of panic buttons because he's been through this all before, both as a manager and a player. And it's a cliche, but there is an awful long way to go, and things can change around very, very quickly. I'm still optimistic, and I'm not going to be slit my throat just yet because Sheffield United are bottom of the league with no points.
Yeah, and I think we all have the yardstick this season that a successful season for Sheffield United will be staying up. You know, ninth was fantastic, but it really didn't set a bar in that area of the table for me. I think it was a great first season, but if they stay up, they'll have done fantastically well. You're nodding. So we're going to come back to it a bit later, but we're going to go on to James Gregg's roundup. And just before we do, by the time this goes out, I'll have had the pleasure, I'm sure it will be, of going to a new ground because Handsworth returned home to Oliver's Mount in the Darnell area quite recently, and they've been on my list for some time, and I've never been to see Handsworth. So the Wednesday night game, by the time this goes out, I will have seen against Eccleshill United FC. But plenty more where that line of chat came from. Coming up now from James.
Yes, Alan. Well, we'll have to report back on that next week because I'm intrigued. And also you've already spoke about it, but non-league football is just flourishing at the moment, isn't it? So we'll talk about who all our sort of usual suspects are playing against this weekend. We'll start with the return of the Premier League and our two league clubs, though, at the moment. Busy international period, wasn't it? And quite a bad one if you're a Blades fan. John Fleck, he's a doubt this weekend because he suffered an injury when he was on duty for Scotland. Ollie Burke, of course, was sent home after that first match by Steve Clarke because of an apparent knock. David McGoldrick, of course, playing for Republic of Ireland. He is also a doubt because he was injured. No idea on how bad these injuries are. And I'm sure that once we've heard from Chris Wilder pre-match in his pre-match press conference, I think on Friday, we'll have some more of an idea. And also John Egan, all this faffing about with these sort of negative and then false positive tests that the Republic of Ireland squad have been having. So John Egan, long and short of it is he's self-isolating, and we won't have an update on that until Friday as well. So none of that really makes good news for United fans ahead of this weekend's game at Fulham. Wednesday, they've got Birmingham this weekend. Of course, Gary Monk, our guest on the show last week, his old side are the opponents this weekend. And it was good hearing from Gary Monk as well. Lots of positive feedback from Wednesday fans about that programme, Alan. So nice one on that one. Right, non-league. Gave you a really comprehensive roundup last week, but a good week for Richard's Sheffield FC. They beat Frickley on Tuesday night. They've got Runcorn Linnets in the FA Vars qualifying second round at the Coach and Horses this weekend. Richard, good win, first of all, last night. And also, are you expecting a few in on Saturday?
Yes, the number's really good. We've obviously got Runcorn, so where we did sell quite a large quantity of tickets to their fans. But because of the recent announcement, obviously people travelling up are reconsidering. So we've been issuing a couple of refunds to spectators who couldn't manage it. But yeah, numbers are really good, certainly from home fans. The growth coming in, we're on about 260 so far. So it wouldn't surprise me if we get to Saturday and by 12 o'clock, they're all gone.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. That's really good to hear. And also, talking of tickets all gone, that's the case for Hallam. They beat Hall Road Rangers last night 4-2. Alan's about to show you some videos that are floating around on Twitter, but why watch them on Twitter when you're already here watching this? And they've actually sold out for Nostell Miners Welfare this weekend at Sandygate, and Saturday Penistone Church have got Goole at home as well. Support non-league, because you might as well at the moment. It is fantastic, really good standard of football. It's raw football. And I've got so many friends who've been going and they're saying, this is brilliant. It's almost like cheating. We're actually going and watching live football and having the full match day experience on a Saturday. So definitely have a look. And if you've got a local club sort of nearby, do try and get down there. And we'll just finish off as well. No news yet on Steelers, Sharks, Eagles, because I think since last week, it's seeming now even less likely that we're going to be getting supporters into the grounds, and therefore they just can't cope with it. So it's a real shame at the moment. But non-league football's where it's at. Get yourselves piling in.
James, thanks very much indeed. And the goals are piling in, as you mentioned, none more so than at Stocksbridge Park Steels this week. Park Steels 4, Belper Town 3. There was a 7-goal thriller in that one. And now, courtesy of a guy called Peter Fleming on Twitter, he lives over in the Humberside area, and Sheffield's second team, if you like, Hallam FC, historically the second team, the second formed, were over there for a midweek game at Hall Road Rangers. They won by 4-2, but I've seen a couple of tweets from Peter Fleming. The commentary's good on these as well, by the way. And this coming up was Hallam's equaliser at 2-2. Now, you might be seeing double on this clip.
Sam Shepherd is perishing on the side. Hello. Oh, I don't believe it! Christ! Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to run that again because Blinken, you miss it. There are actually 2 balls on the field, aren't there? 2 balls on the field before Hallam whipped the ball over and an own goal is scored. I'll just remind you of it. Here it is again.
Sam Shepherd is perishing on the side. Hello. Oh, I don't believe it! Christ! Oh.
I think the outward on that sums up what they felt they saw there. I'll have to consult my refereeing friends about what should have happened or whether that should have been disallowed. But that's not to take any gloss whatsoever off Hallam's win. And talking of gloss, it was certainly provided by Kieran Watson with this goal for number 4.
Oh! Hell of a... Good finish, but should never have got that far, should he?
There we are. There's an example of the kind of entertainment that you can see, and it's right round the corner from you at your local non-league ground. Thanks very much again to James for telling us all about that and all the details on it. Kevin, this weekend, I know you're busy at work. Well, you're not as busy at work as you'd like to be in your hotel at Dromfield, but presumably your weekend includes watching a bit of TV on Sunday?
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Yes, I should be there. I quite like sitting on my own and watching it. I don't tend to invite anybody round or go to the pub or anything like that. I like to concentrate and watch the game and not analyse it as such, but just I get so wound up in it. I don't like anybody talking to me, which is in the same when I'm actually watching it at Sheffield United doing my job. I kind of sit there and take it all in and try and concentrate. So yeah, I'll be definitely glued to it, and obviously hoping and praying that we can get something out of it.
Yeah, quite intense then. We all watch football for enjoyment, but there's a fine line between enjoyment and suffering at times, I think. And I mean, you speak as an adopted Blade, really. They're your team now, but we were talking earlier before we started about Wimbledon and this project Big Picture, which hopefully is getting the big boot, about how Wimbledon, couldn't have happened if the fairy tale there, if these Big Six clubs had their way.
Well, of course not. It takes away a lot of the ambition of some of the clubs. Now, it's very difficult. The Wimbledon's are not a one-off because it happened before to come from such lowly base to get through, to the old First Division, Premier League now, and then win the FA Cup. So that's a unique kind of thing. But it does stifle ambition, doesn't it? Really. It just seems the big clubs are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and richer and richer and richer to want to take all the rewards, and everybody else is scrapping for bits and bobs at the bottom. I mean, Wimbledon have now a fan-funded club, and I'm proud that I've invested. I'm a tiny small part of that. Made an investment into getting Wimbledon back to Plough Lane in their own ground, which is going to happen later on in this season, which has cost about 13 million quid or something, but it's been largely financed by the fans. So it's a tremendous achievement. But yeah, and that's what football's all about at the end of the day, isn't it? You're going on about this big picture or big window or whatever, Big Six, whatever it's called. But it shouldn't be about multi-million pound overseas investors coming in and taking the game and the teams away from the fans. It should be all about the fans at the ground and your match day experience. And that's just going back to what Richard's saying about non-league. Football is not just about the Premier League. It's about 7, 8 tiers of football and all the grassroots football that goes on as well. And the boys' clubs and girls' clubs playing football. It's not just about the Premier League anymore.
Look, great words to go out with there. Nobody can put it better, and I'm really grateful to our guests once again, to Kevin Gage, to Richard Sheldon, very distinguished debut, sir, the general manager of Sheffield FC, and of course James Gregg as well, for bringing us up to date on everything. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've been watching there at home, I hope you join us again next week. We've sort of got a show of an historical bent, serving both sides of Sheffield next week, about a couple of books that have really caught my eye. Meantime, thanks again for watching. See you next week. Bye-bye now. Bye.